Life has a strange way of teaching lessons. Imagine you're racing through New York, chasing deadlines, desperately trying to control every outcome. But the truth is, the tighter you grasp, the more you lose. You're exhausted, clinging to a life that feels like it's spiraling away. What if I told you that the secret to living isn't found in more control, but in the one thing we all fear? What if death isn't your enemy, but your ultimate mentor? Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll reclaim a power you never knew you had. Now, let's go deeper into a concept that most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. It's a phrase that has echoed through the halls of history, from the stone corridors of Rome to the quiet studies of the world's greatest thinkers. Memento Mori. Translated literally, it means, remember that you must die. To many, this sounds and depressing. We've been conditioned in our modern culture to view death as the ultimate failure, a dark shadow we should ignore at all costs until it's far too late. We hide it behind sterile hospital walls and bury it under the noise of our endless notifications. But the truth is, by running away from the end, we are actually running away from life itself. Think of your life through a different lens. Imagine a cracked hourglass. In this metaphor, you are the observer of your own time. You can see the sand slipping through the glass, grain by grain. And here's the catch. You have no idea how much sand was at the top to begin with. Most of us live our lives as if the top of that hourglass is connected to an infinite reservoir. We spend our days trying to patch the cracks, obsessing over the sand that has already fallen, or worse, we simply turn our heads away and pretend the flow has stopped. We procrastinate on our deepest desires, we stay in toxic relationships, and we postpone our happiness until a someday that isn't guaranteed to arrive. The Stoics mastered a different way of seeing. They didn't meditate on death to become morose or cynical. They did it to become intensely, vibrantly alive. They understood a fundamental flaw in human psychology. We live as if we are immortal. We waste our energy on petty arguments. We stress over the opinions of strangers, and we hoard our time as if we can take it with us. This is the greatest illusion of the human mind. Seneca once wrote that we are dying every day because every hour that passes is an hour that death already holds. But here is where the aha moment happens. This isn't about fear, it's about the ultimate liberation. The real power lies in your finitude. When you truly grasp that your time is a non-renewable resource, your perspective shifts instantly. Suddenly, the big problems that kept you awake at night, that awkward email, that fear of judgment, that hesitation to start your business, they start to look incredibly small. Death is the ultimate filter. It strips away everything that is non-essential and leaves only what truly matters. Trust me, when you acknowledge the end, you stop chasing the approval of people who won't be at your funeral. You stop clinging to the safety of a life you've outgrown. You reclaim your agency because you realize that waiting is a luxury you simply cannot afford. Memento Mori is the ultimate productivity tool and the purest source of happiness because it forces you into the present. It's not a death sentence, it's a life enhancement strategy. It's about moving from a state of frustrated struggle trying to outrun the clock into an effortless flow, where every moment is precious because it is unique. So, how do we move from this philosophical realization into the practical reality of our daily grind? How do we use the shadow of the end to brighten the light of our current path? Now, let's talk about how to actually live this out. I want to share with you 7 specific lessons that will help you turn the awareness of your own finitude into a weapon for a more rich and decisive life. Let's start with the most dangerous lie you tell yourself every single morning: I have time. We treat tomorrow like a guaranteed inheritance, a vast, infinite bank account where we can safely deposit all the risks, the passions, and the difficult conversations we're too afraid to face today. But the truth is, that account is empty. The bank is already bankrupt. We are living on credit we can never repay. The Stoic philosopher Seneca addressed this directly centuries ago. He noticed a strange paradox in human behavior. He observed that if someone tried to take our land or our money, we would fight to the death to protect it. We are incredibly stingy with our physical property, but when it comes to our time, the only asset we can never, ever reclaim, we are the most pathetic spendthrifts. We give it away to annoying neighbors, to meaningless digital scrolls, to jobs that don't value us, and, most dangerously, to the act of waiting for the perfect moment. Seneca warned that people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Let's look at what this looks like in the real world. Think about a man named David, living in a quiet suburb in Middle America. He's 40 years old. He has a stable job, a nice lawn, and a soul that is slowly turning to ash. David has a passion. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's starting a small business, or maybe it's just finally being present for his family. But David is a victim of the retirement myth. Every morning, he hits the snooze button and tells himself, just 15 more years of this. Once the mortgage is gone, once the kids are through college, once I have that magic number in my savings, then I will start living. Then I will be the man I was meant to be. Can you see the tragedy in this? David is clinging to a ghost. He is sacrificing the vibrant, living reality of his 40 seconds for a tomorrow that is not promised to anyone. He is caught in a frustrated struggle, sprinting on a treadmill that leads nowhere, convinced that the flow of life only begins at age 65. Trust me, the real power lies in realizing that David's mistake isn't that he's lazy, it's that he thinks he has the luxury of waiting. He is grasping at a future that doesn't exist while the present is spiraling away. What David, and perhaps you don't realize, is that tomorrow is simply an exit strategy for the ego. It's a way to feel good about your potential without ever having to do the hard work of exercising it today. You think you're being responsible by waiting, but you're actually being reckless. You're gambling with the only thing you truly own. So, how do we break the spell of the suburban trap? How do we stop being like David? We have to adopt a radical sense of urgency. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," you need to stop and reframe that thought. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to so tightly that I'm willing to trade my limited heartbeats for it? If you knew that this year was your last, would you still be sitting in that same cubicle, making the same excuses? The truth is, we treat death like a distant destination, a dark room at the end of a very long hallway that we won't have to enter for decades. But that's the ultimate illusion. Death isn't standing at the finish line waiting for you. Death is the wind at your back, pushing you through every moment. It is not something that happens later. Death is happening right now, in every second you let pass pointlessly. Number 2. Strategic pruning. Think about a master gardener at the beginning of spring. They walk through their orchard, and in their hand they carry a pair of sharp, heavy shears. To someone who doesn't understand the craft, what the gardener does next looks like an act of violence. They begin to cut. They remove branches that look perfectly healthy to the untrained eye. They trim back the growth until the tree looks bare, almost wounded. But there is a profound wisdom in this destruction. The gardener knows that the tree has a finite amount of energy, a limited supply of nutrients. If that energy is spread across 1,000 tiny, weak branches, the tree will never have the strength to produce great fruit. It will be busy, yes. It will be covered in leaves, but it will be mediocre. By cutting away the non-essential, the gardener forces the tree to channel all of its life force into what truly matters. We are no different. Most of us are living lives that are overgrown. We are choked by dead wood, toxic relationships that drain our spirit, jobs that demand our soul but offer no meaning, and social obligations that we attend out of a sense of guilt rather than a sense of connection. We feel exhausted, not because we are doing too little, but because we are trying to sustain too much. We are caught in a frustrated struggle, trying to keep every branch alive, even the ones that are killing us. The Stoics mastered the art of strategic pruning by using the most powerful tool available to the human mind, the awareness of the end. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote to himself, "Most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility." Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? When you live with Memento Mori as your guiding principle, the shears become much easier to handle. The dead wood becomes visible. Think about the things that are currently causing you the most stress. That passive-aggressive comment from a colleague on LinkedIn. The fear of what your distant relatives think of your career choices. The pressure to maintain an image of success that doesn't even feel like you. Now, apply the filter. If this were your last week on this earth, would you spend even a single heartbeat caring about that LinkedIn comment? Would you waste your final hours trying to impress people you don't even like? Of course not. In the shadow of the end, the non-essential simply evaporates. You realize that you have been grasping at shadows, clinging to things that have no weight. The truth is, we often cling to toxic situations because we fear the void. We fear the empty space that remains when a relationship ends or a career path changes. But Memento Mori teaches us that the void is already here. Our time is already leaking away. Keeping a toxic person in your life isn't being nice. It's being reckless with the limited time you have left. Staying in a job that makes you miserable isn't being responsible. It's a slow form of spiritual suicide. Strategic pruning is about reclaiming your life force. It's about having the courage to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the great. It's about realizing that every yes you give to something that doesn't matter is a no you are giving to your own peace of mind. When you cut away the dead wood, you aren't losing anything. You are creating the space for your true self to finally breathe. You are moving from the chaos of overgrowth into the effortless flow of a life lived with purpose. Take a hard look at your life today. What are you holding on to too tightly? What branch has been dead for years, yet you still insist on watering it with your tears and your time? Reclaim that energy. That is the power of letting go. But here is the challenge we all face. So, how do we practice this without becoming cold or selfish? How do we prune our lives while still remaining compassionate humans? Now, let's talk about how to deal with the fear of judgment. Number 3, the fear filter. Let's talk about the invisible chains that hold most people back from their true potential, the fear of failure and the crushing weight of social judgment. We spend so much of our lives playing it safe, staying within the lines, because we are terrified of being rejected, mocked, or seen as not enough. But if you want to reclaim your life, you have to realize that most of what you fear is an illusion built by an ego that thinks it's immortal. Imagine you're sitting in a sleek glass office in the heart of Silicon Valley. You've been prepping for this job interview for months. Your palms are sweating, your heart is hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird, and your mind is starting to spiral into what-if scenarios. What if I mess up? What if they realize I'm a fraud? What if I walk out of here with nothing? In that moment, your entire world has shrunk down to the size of that conference room. Your happiness, your self-worth, and your future All feel like they are hanging by a thread, controlled by the person sitting across from you. You have become a prisoner of the outcome. But here is where the Stoics would tell you to use the ultimate fear filter. They would ask you to zoom out, way out, beyond the glass buildings, beyond the valley, beyond the very century you're living in. Compare the sting of a potential no from a hiring manager to the cold, hard reality of the end. In 100 years, the person interviewing you will be gone. You will be gone. The building you're sitting in will be dust. The company itself will likely be a footnote in a forgotten digital archive. The truth is, our social anxiety survives on the myth of permanence. We act as if our embarrassments will echo forever, but Memento Mori shatters that myth. When you bring the awareness of death into that high-pressure room, the fear doesn't just shrink no bien mutwan twan. It feels almost ridiculous to be paralyzed by a stranger's opinion when you are a mortal being with a limited number of heartbeats left. This is how you reclaim your power. You realize that the worst-case scenario isn't failure. The worst-case scenario is living a life dictated by the fear of it. The real power lies in this reframing. Is the discomfort of a rejection really more painful than the regret of never trying, knowing that your time is running out? Trust me, the answer is always no. Most people are so busy protecting their ego that they forget to protect their time. They choose the frustrated struggle of playing it safe over the effortless flow of being authentic. So, how do you apply this filter when the anxiety starts to take hold? I want you to try a simple, almost confrontational practice. Tomorrow morning, stand in front of a mirror, look yourself directly in the eye, and say, "I am going to die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the end is certain. So, what do I really have to fear from a single no or a moment of awkwardness?" It sounds blunt, perhaps even dark, but it is the most empowering thing you can ever tell yourself. It cuts through the noise of social expectations like a hot knife through wax. It dissolves the social anxiety that keeps you small and quiet. Because once you've accepted the ultimate reality, the little things, the critics, the gatekeepers, the what will they think thoughts can no longer control you. You are no longer grasping for approval because you realize there is nothing to hold on to. But if we stop fearing failure, what should we actually chase? If the standard markers of social success lose their power, how do we measure a life well lived? This brings us to a shift in how we view our resources. Now, let's talk about the difference between being rich and being truly wealthy. Number 4, redefining true wealth. We live in a society that measures a human being by the size of their garage and the logo on their watch. Especially here in America, we've been sold a dream that says more is better. More square footage, more gadgets, more digits in the bank account. We spend the best years of our lives, the years where our bodies are strongest and our minds are sharpest, trading our finite time for pieces of plastic and metal. Think about the absurdity of this through the eyes of a traveler. Imagine a man who saves up all year for a trip to Paris. He arrives at a beautiful hotel overlooking the Seine, but instead of walking the streets or tasting the food, he spends every single minute of his vacation trying to figure out how to dismantle the hotel bed and stuff it into his suitcase. He's sweating, he's swearing, he's missing the sunset because he's so obsessed with taking the furniture home with him. You'd call him crazy. You'd say, the point of the trip is the experience, not the bed. Yet, isn't that exactly how we approach our short journey on this planet? We are so busy grasping at the furniture of life, the houses, the cars, the status symbols, that we forget we are just passing through. We act as if we can check our luggage through to the afterlife. The truth is, we often don't even buy these things for ourselves. Most of the time, we are buying things we don't even like, with money we don't really have, to impress people we don't even know. We are trapped in a frustrated struggle for status, hoping that the next purchase will finally give us the sense of peace that only comes from within. We cling to our possessions as if they are part of our identity, but the tighter we hold on, the more they begin to own us. The Stoics had a very different definition of wealth. They saw material things as preferred indifference. It's nice to have a comfortable bed, but it's not essential to a good life. Why? Because anything that can be taken away from you by a market crash, a natural disaster, or a thief isn't truly yours. The only thing you truly own is your character and the way you've spent your attention. This is where Memento Mori becomes your most valuable financial advisor. Death is the ultimate auditor. It stands at the end of the road and strips you of everything physical. You can't take the mansion. You can't take the stock portfolio. You can't even take your own body. So, what remains? What do you actually get to keep? You keep the way you made people feel. You keep the moments of connection that made your heart race. You keep the wisdom you gained from your failures. You carry the memories. If you want to live a truly rich life, start investing in experiences over assets. Spend your money on the dinner with friends where you laughed until you cried. Spend your time on the hobby that makes you forget to check your phone. Spend your energy on the people who will actually be there when the sand in your hourglass runs low. Because at the end of the journey, the traveler who carries the most isn't the one with the heaviest suitcase. It's the one with the most light in their eyes. The one who lived with an effortless flow because they realized they didn't need to own the hotel to enjoy the stay. Take a look at your life right now. Are you building a museum of things or a library of moments? Trust me, the real power lies in knowing the difference. But there's another layer to this. It's not just about what we do. It's about how we feel while we're doing it. How do we make sure that even a mundane Tuesday feels like a masterpiece? This brings us to the core of the Stoic practice. Now, let's talk about the intensity of the present moment. Number 5, visual intensity. I want you to imagine a painter standing on a rugged coastline, watching the sun begin its slow descent toward the horizon. But this isn't just any artist, and this isn't just another day in the studio. Imagine that this painter has been told with absolute certainty that this sunset is the last thing he will ever see. How do you think he paints? Does he move with a sense of frustrated struggle, worrying if his technique is perfect or if the critics will find his work marketable? Does he check his watch every 5 minutes, wondering when he can pack up and go home? Of course not. For him, the concept of later has vanished. All that remains is the vibrant, aching reality of the now. He sees colors that he never noticed before. He notices the way the gold light dances on the edge of the waves and the precise, deep purple of the shadows. He isn't rushing to finish. He is simply in it. The work becomes an effortless flow because there is no future to distract him and no past to haunt him. This is what I call visual intensity, and the truth is, most of us spend our entire lives running away from it. We live our lives in a grey blur. We move through our days like we're reading a book by skipping every other page, just trying to get to the end of the chapter. We are physically present in one place, but our minds are constantly grasping for the next thing. Think about your dinner table tonight. You're sitting there with the people you love most in the world, but what is actually happening? Maybe your hand is clinging to your phone, scrolling through a feed of strangers, while your mind is spiraling into tomorrow's to-do list or an argument you had 3 days ago. You are eating the food, but you aren't tasting it. You are looking at your partner, but you aren't seeing them. You are waiting for the meal to be over so you can start the next task. The real power lies in realizing that this grey blur is a choice, and it's a dangerous one. When we refuse to be present, we are essentially committing a slow form of theft. We are stealing the only life we actually have to give to a future that might never arrive. This is where Memento Mori acts as a sudden, sharp lens. It forces you to reclaim the intensity of the moment. The Stoics didn't use the thought of death to make life feel heavy. They used it to make life feel brilliant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to perform every action as if it were the last of your life. Now, imagine if you applied that lens to that dinner tonight. If you truly understood, not just as an abstract thought, but as a deep, visceral reality, that this might be the last time you sit across from these people, how would that change the room? Suddenly, the phone stays in your pocket. The trivial annoyances disappear. You notice the sound of their laughter, the way the light hits their face, the warmth of the conversation. The frustrated struggle of trying to be everywhere at once dissolves into the effortless flow of being exactly where you are. Trust me, the beauty of your life is not hidden in some distant, big moment. It is hidden in the mundane details that you are currently ignoring. It's in the steam rising from your coffee, the feeling of the wind on your face, the quiet rhythm of your own breath. Memento Mori doesn't make these things warm. It makes them miraculous. It turns up the volume on reality. So, my challenge for you is this. Today, choose one mundane activity, whether it's walking to your car, washing the dishes, or talking to a friend. Do it with the visual intensity of that painter. Stop grasping for what's next and simply be in the now. Because the truth is, you don't have to wait for the end to start living with that kind of clarity. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. If we live with this much intensity, what do we leave behind? How do we sum up a life that has been lived with this much awareness? Now, let's talk about the final wrap-up. How to turn these lessons into your lasting legacy. We've traveled a long road today, from the crowded, frantic streets of New York to the quiet, internal landscapes of the Stoic mind. We've looked directly into the one thing most people spend their entire lives running away from. But I hope by now you realize that Memento Mori isn't a shadow lurking in the corner. It is the most powerful light you can carry. It is a tool for the brave. It is a compass for those who are tired of drifting and are ready to start sailing. The truth is, we are all temporary. Every person you see, every building you enter, every empire currently dominating the headlines, it's all on a timer. To some, that sounds like a tragedy, but to those who understand the real power of finitude, it's the ultimate relief. It's the permission you've been waiting for to stop playing small. It's the wake-up call that tells you that your life is happening right now, in the very breath you are taking as you listen to my voice. Trust me, when you truly embrace the end, you stop the frustrated struggle of trying to please everyone. You stop grasping at status symbols that have no soul. You start to move with an effortless flow, because you finally understand what is worth your energy and what is merely noise. We've been conditioned to believe that success is a pile of things, or a title on a door. But let's reframe that right here, right now. Living a rich life isn't about how many digits are in your bank account when the clock stops. It is about how much life you manage to pack into your years. It's about the intensity of your presence, the depth of your character, and the strength of the legacy you leave in the hearts of others. The real power lies in this final realization. Life is not about controlling the outcome. It was never about making sure everything goes according to your plan. Life is about mastering yourself. It's about being the person who can stand in the middle of the storm, knowing that your time is limited, and still choosing to act with virtue, courage, and kindness. When you master yourself, the outcomes no longer have the power to break you. You become the architect of your own peace. Before we part ways today, I want to ask a small favor. If this conversation brought you even a moment of clarity, if it helped you release the grip on a fear that's been holding you back, I'd be deeply grateful if you'd hit the subscribe button. It's a simple act of gratitude that helps us bring these ancient truths to a modern world that desperately needs them. We're building a community of people who choose to live decisively, and we'd be honored to have you with us. But knowing that your time is limited is only the first step. The next question is, how do you apply this limit to the high-stakes, high-pressure world of your career and your business? How do you remain a stoic when there are deals to be made and empires to build? If you're ready to take this mindset into the marketplace, you need to watch this next video on Stoicism in business. It will change the way you look at success forever. Thank you for your time. Now, go out and live as if your life depends on it, because it does.